Hi Factoryites, and welcome to Factory Sound TV, where it's about time that we learnt something more about wireless happening in Australia post-2011. And with us we're lucky and fortunate to have Jeff MacKenzie from JANZ and AWAG, who's going to give us the latest on it. Thanks, Jeff, for coming down.
I had no choice.
You didn't, did you?
No.
So since we last spoke in July last year, what has changed?
I'm trying to think exactly where we got to in July last year.
We were talking about people making choices, buying their frequencies between 522, 693, buying as many
520
channels.
to 694, but, you know, close enough.
Yep. People buying as many channels as they could afford to do to try and future-proof themselves as much as possible.
Yep.
So what is the latest now?
Well, I imagine probably the most commonly asked question that you'd be getting, and the same as we are, is when, which of course is the million-dollar question, and unfortunately we still can't absolutely answer that. The only real milestone we know is that analogue television in Australia, in the capital cities, will cease midnight 31st of December 2013. So that signals the start of the entire process. There's two problems after that for, you know, in the point of view of the government / ACMA, is that they then need to clear that spectrum to be able to hand it over to the new owners. So they need to clear out both television and wireless mic users. There's a discussion paper out currently talking about the television restack, and it proposes a couple of options, without going into too many details. One being minimum moves, and one creating a block structure and reallocating effectively the entire television band structure as we know it.
And if I can interrupt, it would almost make sense that the block structure would be best if we were all starting again.
Yeah, and in the ACMA paper that's out currently, which is available for download on the ACMA website, they look at a proposal of minimum moves versus block, using the Gold Coast as an example, and they actually come out and say they prefer block. And the television industry via Free TV Australia has also said the same. So whilst it's too early to say, because the paper hasn't closed yet, and I don't want to get in trouble for, making statements that may not come true, I think the smart money is on that the block structure is what we will see.
Now let's just look at the pros and cons of the block. So I imagine the big pro of the block would be that we would have available space in our industry in every capital city being the same frequency set.
No.
All right,
no, not true.
Might edit that bit out then.
Let's leave it in.
All right. What does it mean?
What it means is the proposal is to create 5 blocks of 6 contiguous channels. Now, the first block, which we're sort of calling Block A, they don't have official names, but Block A seems like a good enough name, will be VHF. And in the paper they say that it's preferred to restack all primary television transmitters in the capital cities into Block A. Most capital cities, it's primary VHF anyway, apart from SBS. So that means a frequency move for SBS into VHF. So that clears some UHF traffic. Then the remaining 4 blocks will be used for infills, and that will change city by city, because some cities need more infills than others. In Sydney, we've got infill transmitters on North Head and King's Cross. Not sure about Melbourne. I'm sorry, I don't know the geography well enough. But places like Brisbane, where it's predominantly flat, and Perth, where it's very, very flat, need very few infills at all, right? So those other blocks could either be totally occupied or totally clear, depending on the city. And there's no guarantee that they'll be allocated the same city for city. In fact, I think that would be highly unlikely. So you could end up with a scenario where you've got, in one city, say Melbourne, for example, you might have all of Block D, say, absolutely free, which would be perfect for wireless mics. But in Sydney or Brisbane, that may be occupied. So you may end up having to change frequencies, changing kit city by city if you're touring.
Jeff, how likely is the block scenario in comparison to it maintaining the way that they were originally thinking?
Well, again, it's just a proposal currently, but again, given that the television industry and the government regulator have both stated they prefer that, I can't see it likely to go any other way unless someone else from left field comes in with a well-engineered proposal explaining why block is not preferable. So, yeah, too early, but the smart money I suggest is that we will get a block approach.
Okay. And what does that mean for people who currently own equipment?
Really, it's a wait and see scenario. until there's two decisions have to be made. First, will it be block, will it be minimum moves? And we should hear from that, I would hope, within 6 months of the close of the paper. Once they've done that, then they need to work out the new allocation and reallocate the television transmitters. Now, that's not a small task. That's a fairly, that's a national replot of all television. So that will take time as well. And no one's really stated how long that would take, but there's been, various discussions of 12 months, 24 months. So we could be looking at, say 2014 or maybe even towards 2015 until the television restack is complete. So again, please don't sue me, but, assuming that wireless mics are expected to vacate around the same time, we could be looking around 2014, 2015.
Yep. Okay, so I guess also the message is that if people do own something, they've got a couple or 3 years until anything drastic should happen anyway.
And hopefully they'll be given notice. I mean, it's we have to believe that the government would not be so unreasonable to say, okay, you have 7 days to vacate. We would like to get at least 12 months notice. But currently, the only real advice I can give is that we know that we need to move below 694 meg. So the safe area becomes 520 to 694. But we know that television will be restacked within that band, so we don't know what the best option within that will be, and it will probably vary city to city. So the best thing to do at the moment is, if you are considering move, make sure you're in that frequency band and buy as wide a switching bandwidth as you can to maximise your odds of finding a clear frequency.
And this is similar information that we were hearing at the Jans at Home talk that we went to last night. Something
I
else
noticed you left early though.
No, we didn't. We arrived late though. Something else we noticed there, and then was you were discussing white
space devices. Yeah. White space devices have something that's been discussed in the US for quite some time, and in a very, very short version of the story, they're effectively, think of them as a higher power Wi-Fi node. They're an alternative to wireless networking, and they, again, seek out vacant television channels, or white spaces as they're called, and utilise that for data transmission. The scary thing for wireless mic users is that the model proposed in the US, these devices are able to dynamically change frequency, real time. So
you can do a sound check in the afternoon, they can search, find nothing switched on and take it over, and you cannot get back in.
Potentially. There are, the FCC, the US regulator, has put a few restrictions around the way the white space devices may work. So there are a couple of safe havens, but potentially there is a clash that could happen if you're not careful.
Okay.
So far in Australia, there's been no official response to white space devices. However, the CSIRO has recently done some tests on a system that is very similar in Tasmania, designed to deliver broadband to rural areas. And it utilises, again, vacant television channels to deliver high-speed data, internet access, intended to be, the last mile connection for rural areas, to get the fibre to the mountaintop rather than the houses. Yep. And then use RF.
Okay, well that's ingenious.
It is actually quite a cool scheme, and there's details on that on the CSIRO website if people want to check it out. The nice thing about the CSIRO technology compared to the US proposal is that the CSIRO devices, that's hard to say, don't dynamically change frequency. Right, so they'll be on a fixed location on a licensed channel. So as far as wireless mic users are concerned, it would just be like another television transmitter to us.
Well, Jeff MacKenzie, you've done it once again.
Thank you.
Thank you, mate.
Thanks for the opportunity to come and talk to you guys again, and thanks for the beers, and hopefully it wasn't too obvious from some of the words I screwed up.
You're always welcome. Thank you, mate. We'll see you all later.
Cheers.